Hey, welcome to today's video. I'm Richard Chapo, internet lawyer, San Diego, California. I just wanted to cut a quick video today on the big news here on Tuesday. Tuesdays, the big news is usually that's Taco Tuesday. But instead, we've got news out of Europe. Yes, the Europeans have passed their proposed and controversial copyright directive. Looks like it passed by about 70 votes in a vote at the EU Parliament today, which made it a pretty close vote, but not a nail biter by any stretch of the imagination. And that's kind of bizarre because the copyright directive contains a number of provisions that, frankly, have been proven not to work. So it's one of those head scratchers. So I'm not going to talk about the entire copyright directive in today's video because I'd probably start screaming around the 4-minute mark. Instead, we're going to look at just one provision and kind of give you an idea of just how, strange this entire directive is. And the provision is Article 11, the link tax. So we're going to basically point out why the EU link tax will fail. So what is a link tax? Well, it's basically the idea that if you link to a press source in the EU, you must pay a tax. Now, actually, you're paying a licensing fee, but licensing fee apparently is a boring phrase, and so they changed it to link tax for, I don't know what reason. Maybe it sounds sexier or something. But nonetheless, that's the basic concept here. And they aren't really so much looking at individual websites, that are creating posts that might have one or two links to news sites. Instead, they're looking at news aggregators. And the real target here is Google. So if you go to Google News, what you see is a page with a ton of hyperlinks to whatever the big news stories are of the day. And so you'll see the headline for the news story, and that is hyperlinked, and it clicks through to whatever the source is for the news story. And so that source is not controlled by Google. It's not a Google site. It's actually the original source of the news story. So if the Telegraph in the UK publishes something about, Meghan Markle, Google would grab that headline, put it on Google News, and then hyperlink that statement so that it clicks through to Meghan Markle's website. Pretty straightforward. Pretty simple. The EU apparently views this as an egregious violation of the rights of the press, and so they have passed this link tax. And so in theory, Google would then need to pay a licensing fee to link to all these different sites. And that's how it's supposed to work. Now, the interesting thing about the link tax is that this is not the first time we've tried it. It's not the first time we've tried it in Europe. And in every situation, it has been an complete and utter failure. And so it's difficult to understand why they're doing this again. Now, you don't have to believe me. It's not me saying my opinion has been a failure. We have actual examples. So let's go to 2013. Germany passes a link tax to try to support the press. And it's basically the same thing. If you link to a press site in Germany, you have to pay this licensing fee. And so what do you think happened? What do you think the news aggregators did? Right. They stopped linking to those sources. And so they just filtered out all German news sources and linked to other sites instead that had the same basic stories. And it was an unmitigated disaster for the press in Germany. Traffic to their sites plummeted. And if the traffic plummeted, what happened to their revenues, right? Plummeted as well. And it got so bad that the leading German media groups actually bound together and went to Google on bended knee and begged Google to start linking to their sites again and linking to their stories. And in exchange, the German news groups agreed to waive the link tax. So think about that for a minute. Here's a group that this link tax was supposed to benefit, and it nearly killed them. And they were actually the group that found a solution to it. Which was basically to ignore it. So that should tell you all you need to know about this revenue model. Now, in Germany's defense, they weren't the only group that tried this. A year later, 2014, Spain, apparently ignoring everything going on in Germany, tried their own link tax. And it was even more draconian. It was so draconian that the news aggregators stopped linking to news sources and press sources in Spain, and then took the additional step of actually blocking Spain from viewing their sites. So if you were sitting in Barcelona on a beautiful sunny day, it's lunch, you whip open your laptop, you're having a sangria, and you pull up Google News, and you can't load the site. you're blocked. So what impact do you think this had on Spanish news sources? Right. Traffic dropped. Revenues dropped. It was a disaster. Now, you don't have to believe me. Here's what one of the leading Spanish newspapers said. Quote, those who want to make these rights a bastion from which to impose a mandatory non-waivable fee are wrong. It is a model that has already proven its failure in Germany in 2013 and in Spain in 2014. Attempts to impose a mandatory fee on Google for the use of links to press news caused a major traffic drop and the closing in Spain of the Google News service, end quote. So here's a group that would supposedly benefit from the EU link text saying, don't do it. Don't do it. It doesn't work. But the EU went ahead and did it through hubris. I don't know. I don't know why they're doing it. I think it points to a disconnect between the people, the bureaucrats of the EU who write and draft these rules and directives and what have you, and how the world really works. They view news aggregators as something negative, but news aggregators are actually something great. Let's take a German newspaper with their headline, okay? Well, who's going to read that headline? Let's say there's no aggregators. Okay, probably a small population in Germany. Now, if that headline from one of their key stories gets on the homepage of Google News, well, it's exposed not only to that audience in Germany, it's exposed to an audience around the world. So you're going to have people in Los Angeles, people in Moscow, people in Tokyo, all over the world reading that. Tons of traffic coming to that site. And it's going to grow that site. And if they can monetize their traffic, they're going to reap revenues from it. If people are impressed by the articles, they're more likely to come to that German site, that German press site, for further information. I'll give you an example. I often go visit the Telegraph, and I found them through Google News. I enjoy their writing; they do a good job, and so I will often go to that site. If Google News didn't exist, I would have never found out about the Telegraph. I would have never found out about the different papers that are available in Europe. And so it's really backwards thinking by the EU, to be quite honest. The other aspect of this is, if it hasn't worked at the country level, what makes them think that it's going to work at the EU level? And the argument I've heard is the EU is large enough that companies will have no choice but to link to news resources in the EU. And that is, again, just a disconnect between politicians who don't understand how the internet works and the reality of the web. You don't have to be based in a country to write a news story about it. It's not the European Union web. It's the World Wide Web. So if there is a scandal in German politics, companies in Canada, the press in Canada, the press in the United States, the press in Japan, they're all going to write about it. And so aggregators can link to those sites instead of, whatever the paper is in Germany. It's a concept and an approach that doesn't work. And, should we support the press? Should we make accommodations for them? Well, that's a debate we can have. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. Everybody's going to have a different opinion. But if the answer is yes, well, there are better ways to go about it than this, which it just doesn't work. So it's interesting to see that this is the approach they've tried to take again. And I think it's pretty evident that the EU link tax will fail, just like it has every time before. So anyways, that's it for today's video. Have yourself a good one.